Welcome to Financial Garden Live, where we plant financial seeds every week so you can grow in our 6 areas of focus. Emotions and money, entrepreneurship, budgeting, banking, debt fundamentals, and investing. I'm your host, Tasha Danielle. Let's dig in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Financial Garden Live. I have a very special guest with me here today. Allana Anthony is joining us on Financial Garden Live. Allana Anthony is founder of Financialdemics, where she is a money coach because she's a certified financial educator, so she knows all about getting everybody money together. Financialdemics is also a blog and YouTube channel where she lays the foundations for women have their wins with personal finance. And she's also the co-host of Single Moms on the Money, which is a bi-weekly podcast where she's still dropping financial gems. And she is also a debt payoff guru because she has paid off over $65,000 in debt and counting. And this is why she's on here today to drop some of those gems on paying off debt. And I'm just so happy to have her here because we met in person in FinCon a couple years back. So welcome, Allana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone of Financial Garden's mission, 10K with Amina, and that is to financially educate 10,000 kids about kidpreneurship. So the book is on the screen. You see it below. Head over to financialgarden.com to get your signed copy today. Now that I got my promo out of the way, welcome, Allana.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I want to just kind of recap from how we met each other at FinCon. That was 2 years ago.
Yes, it was 2 years ago. I remember too exactly where we were when we met. Like we were in the front. We were in Orlando. And we were in the front before going out. And if I'm not mistaken, we were about to go to like an event for Black Girl Financial Magic, and okay. That's how. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember not the after party. One of those, they always had so many different things. I remember us talking there, and it was so many Black people. Let me just say that FinCon that year was I think that was the highest amount of Black people they had, and people of color in general talking about personal finance. So when I seen somebody, I'm like, hey, you gave me a look like, hey girl. So we just no, I knew the bigger names that were there. I didn't realize that it was so many of us in the personal finance space. And after FinCon, I'm like, let me follow you. And I just been following you over the last couple of years. And I love your YouTube channel for one, because you break down everything very well, which is why I definitely wanted to have you on. Plus, you just have a great personality, and we did our run through together and was on forever. And I know. Well, we not need to wait that long to talk ever again.
No, we don't, because we definitely clicked. We got so much in common. So we both in this space, and like they always say, it's collaboration, not competition. So we got to stay in contact.
No, I definitely agree. So let's talk. Oh, and I also want to say too, because before we get to your money payoff story, another event we're going to be connecting on or just attending is the Elevate Money. And I'm so glad that that's what came out of FinCon those many years ago. The connection and Elevate Money on the Facebook group. That's an easy way that we all stay together. So big shout out to Sandy Smith for putting that all together. And I'm so excited for Elevate Money Conference virtual. I wish it was in person.
I do too. I was ready to go to DC, but that's okay. We're still going to get with everyone next weekend. So I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And the first day is sponsored by Motley Fool. Motley Fool.
Yep.
So it's going to be free the first day. So I think it's elevatemoney.com, or if you just search the hashtag on Instagram, you can see. But it's going to be, if you are in a personal finance space or any interest in it, you should definitely check out. The first day is free, so you should definitely check it out. But moving along, let's talk about money. Let's talk about your debt. And you paid off over 65,000 so far. So
Yes.
how have you done that?
Oh my goodness. So I will say that my story's not like everybody else, because you hear about the stories like, oh, I paid off 65,000 in 18 months or whatever. And that was the plan. But reality is I just couldn't do it that way, just because I had other responsibilities and things I thought were more important. So I will say that I started paying off my debt, I want to say it was around 2010, 2011 when I started the process. And you want the backstory?
That's what you're here for. The backstory.
Right. So I was teaching adjunct. And so I really, I wasn't thinking about getting like my PhD or anything when I originally graduated from my MBA program. But I found out that they were looking for adjuncts in the accounting field, not adjuncts, but they were looking for PhDs in the accounting field, because most of those people were unfortunately passing away. And a lot of people didn't really want to be in the academia world. And I love teaching. I don't know, I get something from it. It really gives me a high. And so I was like, oh, do I want to do it? They were giving away scholarships for free. So you were getting free PhDs out here. And so I was just I need to
that, because I have looked into I can't think of the name of it right now, but I know it's every year in Chicago, like November, they're looking for people of color, especially African Americans, to get into academia at the PhD level. I just can't think of the name of it, where it's like the consortium where they want to pay for you to get your PhD program.
Can't remember the name of it right now either, but so I didn't go to it. What happened is my dean at the time knew about it, and she told me and like several other people, we're all around like the same age, like y'all should jump on it. And so I was like, but then I started looking, because I'm like, a free PhD, like who can get a free PhD? And so I started the process, and everything, reached out to a school, was talking to the person. But then when I even traded in my car, which I will say this, I traded in a car I didn't need and got another car, but still didn't really do it right, because I still had payments. But it was just like a cheaper car, you know what I mean? But I'm thinking I'm getting it right, I'm doing it right. But when I was doing the numbers, when all was said and done, I just really couldn't afford to go get a free PhD.
You couldn't afford to get a free PhD?
No, because also I should mention I was a single mother then. And so like between dealing with my son, which I was going to bring him with me, of course, but like the stipend was only about $24,000 a year. At that time, I was making over $50,000. Like it would have been a serious pay cut. I had already owned a home, and I was doing a lot. I was doing way too much. I had way too much debt, because with my house, I had like some issues. So it kind of like wiped out my savings before that and stuff. But I was, in my head, once I said that I'm going to do something, I do it. So I was like, I'm going to make this happen. But the reality is I couldn't make it happen. I would have been so stressed out. I probably would end up dropping out the program. So I ended up having to back out. And that's when I realized, like, okay, I got held back from something for free. Like, free. So I was like, okay, I got to pay off my debt. So I started like selling stuff. I started, cause I was a big shopaholic. So, and I still love to shop, but I'm more control. So
I like that you are being transparent in that, because you hear that stories and it's just like they had their aha moment. That's kind of like similar to mine. You get steadfast, but you're like, no, I'm human. I was a shopaholic.
I was a shopaholic. I like still am. Like it's a lot of control. Like, okay, all right, we only got this much. Like I build that in, like build in my shopping. But yeah, so I started selling stuff, because I had stuff in my closet with tags on it. And I started getting rid of furniture, because I had a house, but I had rooms that we didn't use. Like, it was crazy. So it was just, I started getting rid of stuff. And then because I was teaching adjunct, I kind of really just sat down with my numbers and was like, what can you afford? And truthfully, like, crazy enough, I had like an extra $300 even once I like built in doing brunch, you know, entertainment, stuff like that. I still had extra money. So I was just spending through it clearly. And then that was before my adjunct check. So
did you realize until you didn't realize until you sat down and wrote it down how much you really should have had, or did you know that before then?
So I was kind of budgeting, like kind of. I was budgeting, but not really. Like, I wasn't going back to analyze. And I always say that's like that big thing that people miss. Like, I would budget it out, and then I'll know I'm off a little. But I never went to see like, where did you spend your money? Why are you off? You know, what can you shift and what can you do differently? I wasn't doing that piece. So I knew there was money. I just didn't know how much. So I started dedicating my whole adjunct check to paying off debt, and part of the money that I had had left over, I was using some of that to build up my savings some more and stuff like that, because like I said, my savings had wiped out my my house had wiped out my savings. So I started doing that, and then I started like, I was doing the adjunct, but then I started mystery shopping. Then I started, I had my notary license. So I was doing some notaries. I was doing like some personal shopping, because I'm like, might as well use that skill that you already have to help other people out. And so I just started really just hustling, like doing all these little side hustles to put that towards paying off my debt. And so that started the process. So I paid off like $48,000 within like a 3.5-4 year time span. Wow. And then I slowed it down because I moved to New York. I got married, so I started slowing it down there, where I paid cash for our wedding. So we paid cash. And then when we moved to New York, my son was a teenager, so I was not about to just put him in public school, because we actually live in the city. So I started putting a big chunk of my income towards like private school. So that kind of just slowed me down. I was still paying extra, but just not like the thousands that I was paying before. And so now he's in college, you know, I'm kind of like pushing more. Even I've slowed down. I will say I've slowed down with what's going on, but you know, I'm trying to push and wrap up these student loans in the next, I'm hoping I still can do it in 2 years. That is the goal.
You listen, you just said you can do anything you put your mind to. Now, you said a whole lot, so we got to back check. Yes. First of all, congratulations on your son going to college. I know you were telling me you just drove him down.
Yes.
Right?
Last weekend. Yep.
Okay, so that's a huge, huge thing. And I just want to go back to your why, because I just think that's so important, because you couldn't do something for free because of your financial situation. And that really was your wake up call to be like, okay, something got to change here. So everybody's why is different. I know for me, I wanted to own my paycheck. That was my biggest thing. But I'm glad that was like something that shook you, like, wow, I couldn't take this opportunity. That was one of the main reasons. But like you said, you were just transparent in all the stuff that was going on. Mm-hmm. So my other question to you is, you had just named like 5 side hustles in one breath. So like let's back it up first. We got a few comments. Is it some? I hope I'm saying there is Samara. Yes, I'm excited for Elevate Conference. So we are virtually. Okay, so let me see what Rose's question is. People feel shame, which causes inaction at first. And then she said, would you say that either? What do you think about that question?
I think for other people, but for me, I'm just, I do think some people feel ashamed and then they don't want to do anything. But for me, I'm one of those people, like, I'm like, what? Like, you can't tell me I can't do something. So my mindset automatically went into, what am I going to do? Because I can't live this life. Like, this is not okay. So that's how I do. But a lot of people, you know, they do feel shame. Like, they're just, they think people will talk about them and things like that. But I mean, if we didn't learn anything from this pandemic, these companies are living check to check.
Yes, they are. And I'm like, y'all need to be on a 50, 30, 20 budget or something,
right.
because after 2 weeks, everybody was like, we need to bail out. Where is this money coming from? So to Rose your question, I do feel like a lot of people feel like it's shame. I know personal friends of mine, when I was doing my journey, they were acting like it was all good, and now they're coming back around and trying to pay off their debt. So I think it's just really important on the money mindset. But I think that, like Allana, you were like, I'm gonna get this done. I don't care, and you're so transparent. So let's talk about these side hustles.
Oh yeah.
So, because you just said you just rattled them off like it was nothing.
Yeah, okay. I was hustling.
So you did the adjunct, and so you were able to put that extra money, a whole 100% towards your debt. So you said you didn't do the PhD program, but how did you get into being an adjunct professor? For people who are watching, this could be a great way for them to increase their income, just depending on how you share, how you got involved with that.
Right. So you can have a master's for most of them, I will say, but there are some fields that I have noticed, because I always look at everybody's field. I don't look at just mine, that you don't necessarily have to have a master's degree. You just have to have a lot of experience in that field. But for me, I teach typically undergrad, like at a community college, and since I'm teaching accounting, I have to have a master's degree. So either a master's in accounting or MBA. I will say it's hard to get into. It took me a whole year. I applied to schools repeatedly, but someone took a chance on me. So what I will say is make sure that your resume shows your ability to train. So if you're working in like corporate America, make sure you highlight your training skills, your resume to teach, because that's my dean told me that's what made her look at my resume. Because I was a TA in college for 1 year, and she said that wasn't even what did it. It was the fact that I had trained others at work, so she knew I had the skills to teach someone. So make sure that you have your master's. Make sure you're highlighting your transferable skills. Continue to apply. I think it's good to apply around when semesters are about to start. So most schools start in August, even though they have a spring semester. Typically, they're trying to hire on before August. Both of my adjunct positions, because I adjunct where I used to live, which was in Charlotte, and I adjunct here in New York City, and I got the job in August every single time. So, okay. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say after you get done with that, I was gonna say how much do you make per course? Does it depend on the field, or?
It depends on the skill, and it depends on the school. So I will say, like up here, I get paid a lot more than I got paid in Charlotte. But what I will say is, depending on like what you make already, I thought I was a pretty decent earner, but I could make the same money working part-time teaching easily. So, yeah, and even what I get paid up here, I could really just teach.
Okay.
I can really just teach. It's a really good pay up here. I mean, there are some things, like I've heard people complain about, like the time you take outside of the classroom. But for me, what I always do is I try to stick with the same classes. I don't want to teach nothing new. And the reason why is because you have to put in that time to build that course out. But what I try to do is build the course out once. They normally pay you an extra credit hour above what the class credit hours are. So like if the class is like 4 credit hours, then you get paid for 5 for the week. And so I use that 5 really well. I really use my time. And even if for me, I'm very concise, so I can get my students out quickly out of the classroom. They're not, but I use that extra time to kind of really use my time. So I'm not doing extra stuff outside of my time. But once I teach that same class, I try to stick with it, because then I'm able to use the same stuff over and over again. So I'm only putting in work up front. And then after that, I really only want to teach that class. So, but they do pay well, depending on where you live, I will say. So
listen, that's a good. I remember seeing that when you posted and you shared about being an adjunct professor, because that's something that I have said I want to do. Like I was saying, getting into a PhD program, but just finding the time. I mean, so I'm gonna do it eventually, just prioritizing and making the time to do that. So you said make sure if you have any questions for us, we're talking side hustles right now. Allana is breaking down how she was able to put a ton of money towards her debt. She is very transparent in her journey, and it's not like I paid off $100,000 in a month. That's not that's not her story. So if you are like, okay, those great headlines, those not clickbait, those great clickers to say, okay, great, you did that in a week. I'm gonna need that to be dialed down. I'm really glad that Allana is breaking it down. So side hustle number one was adjunct professor.
yeah.
You mentioned notary.
Yeah, so I'm a notary now too. But I will say this: the one thing I haven't done, which people should do, is become like a sign-in agent. So I'll speak about being a notary, and then I'll talk about a sign-in agent. So as a notary, I could notarize documents for people. And so that worked out for me as a side hustle because I was going around, like people I knew, they were always coming to me. And so I was charging them to do notarized documents. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have been a national signing agent. So these are the people. So you own a house. So that notary who was sitting there at your closing is a national signing agent. And you can get like up to not up to, but starting around like $100, $125 per real estate signing. So you can do
work up a little bit. You can get $100 to $200 per what?
Real estate signing. So real estate closing. Yeah. So as a signing agent. And so wow. I wish I would have known that. Because that's what I would have done.
So how do you know how you become a signing agent? I guess is there a big difference between a signing agent and a notary?
Yeah, because notary, you're only first of all, you're only regulated in your state. So like I just became a notary here. I was a notary in North Carolina, but I've been here for 5 years. And I just became a notary last year here. But as a signing agent, like you do have to take a course. So there's some different places where you can take courses. One off the top of my head is the National Notary Association, but I do have some more. So if people have questions or want to ask, I'll give you the links to other courses you can take. But you have to take a course and then take a test. And most of these courses you do have to pay for. So it's not necessarily cheap, but you'll get your money back quick because they pay very well. There's people out there like making full salaries, like off of being a national signing agent. So
I definitely learned something new today because I have not heard of that. You always hear notary, but being a signing agent, I think my closing I've been through 2 so far. The first one was maybe like an hour and a half. I guess it depends on what you have going on. If the wire comes through on time, whoever your mortgage is through, maybe hour and a half, and you just make $100 to $200 off the signing and do a few of those a day. That's a good side hustle.
Yeah, I actually listened to a guy on what is this site? What is Side Hustle Nation, the podcast? He does it. He stopped working. He's making like $11,000 a month doing signings. So yeah, he's making good money. And there's a few people that I follow that are making good money off of just signing. Like they're doing closings and things like that. So that's an option because that's something you could do because they're looking for people. Like there's apps where they're looking for people and you just say, okay, I'm going to do it. They tell you where to show up and you go do it. Or you can link up with different law offices or like real estate agents and things like that. So it's a way to make good money. I wish I knew.
Listen, I need some hearts if you're watching on Facebook in the live section because that was a lot. That was a lot that you just dropped. I'm gonna definitely get my Googles on after this to look more into being a signing agent because that is some easy money. I wanted to put some dollars on it though. So you talk about signing agent, not asking how much you made from notary, but on average, if you are doing notary services, with something, an amount that a person could make if they put like, let's say 10 hours a week into doing notary services.
So I think it depends, because there are people who are like travel notaries, so they get to charge like travel fees and things like that with it. When I was doing notary services, I would say that I wasn't consistent. So I would say that. So I would have like a good month and then I take a break, do some other stuff, come back. So I know within 1 month I had made like $100, but that was just me randomly like, oh, let's so I know, or hey, so and so needs a notary, and I'm like, okay, cool, like I'll go do it, whatever, like let me get this money real quick. So that was my mindset. But national signing agent, that's the one. Like that is the one I like. If I could go back, that's what I would do.
Okay, so notary, as your professor, you just put us up a game about a signing agent. You said you were selling clothes. Now, where were you selling your clothes and furniture at?
So I was either going to like nice high-end thrift stores, because I was good for like buying stuff that was nice but just heavily discounted on sale. So I would go to thrift stores. I would go to eBay. Around that time, Craigslist was popping. So I was selling stuff on Craigslist at that time. And then like also I was selling books too. So on Amazon and Check, I don't think buys books like they used to, or does that service like they used to anymore. But like I had a lot of textbooks or just books in general, and I would just sell them. So I would sell those. And then I'm trying to think is there anything that I'm missing, but mostly like eBay, Amazon, Chegg, and then thrift stores in the area, and then like selling stuff on Craigslist. And I will say with the thrift stores, kids stuff sells so well. So my son, I had like, play clothes and nice clothes. And so when he grows out of his nice clothes, he didn't wear them that often. I would sell them in a heartbeat. So.
Okay. So any side hustle I missed? So notary, adjunct, selling clothes, selling books, furniture. Yeah. I feel like I'm missing something. Did I get everything? I feel like I'm missing
something too. I see what I did.
Okay, so
sometimes I would work overtime at work, and I would keep track of it because at that time I was getting paid hourly, and so I would use that money too. I would put that, if it was overtime money, I would separate it out when I got paid and put it towards debt. So I was doing a lot of little random stuff.
It's good though, this stuff. So I got a question from Tanya. If you're a signing agent, do you choose your own signing, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's an app. So look, I've been all into it because I need to look into it now because my son is still in my pockets. So there's an app where you get to, like, they put it out there and you can jump on there and sign up for a signing. So it's kind of like, I hate to say, it's like if you think of like Uber and stuff, like somebody picks up your ride, is similar to that. Like they have a request and then you go and you say, okay, I'm gonna do this request. And from what I've seen, you're able to like narrow it down to where you are, so it makes sense for you.
Okay. So hopefully if that didn't answer your question, let us know. But let's get back to, we talked about the side hustle. Let's talk about budgeting. You said that you wrote everything down, and you that's how you realized that, okay, I should be having an extra $300, but I'm not seeing that. And you were like, I thought I was budgeting, but not for real. Let's talk about what you just recently shared on your YouTube channel, the 50-30-20 budget. And I think this would be maybe a lot easier for people to digest and truly, get with. So we're gonna talk about the B word being budgeting. Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about the B word. It's like when I talk about paying off my debt, they're like, how did you do it? And I'm like, I tracked what I spent, tracked what I had coming in, made cuts. It's like when you're dieting, right? Or not dieting, or you want to lose weight. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to hear that. They're like, that's it. I mean, that's the boring way of saying it. But yeah, I had a budget. I know we hate to hear that word, but that's truly how I got there. And like Alana just said, she got real about her numbers when she started budgeting. Now, 50, 30, 20, what is that?
Okay, so 50, 30, 20. So I actually just remember what the other side hustle was. But anyway, 50, 30, 20.
What is it? Tell us the last side hustle.
It was mystery shopping.
Oh, yeah, you did, because you said shopaholic.
I was mystery
Let's talk about that last side hustle real quick.
So I signed up with a mystery shopping company. They're still around. It's called Smart. And what I did was, I can't speak on the people who I mystery shopped because that's part of like the whole contract thing. But basically they would send you into stores and restaurants and you would have to order or inquire about certain things. And then they would actually pay you. So if you went into a restaurant, they want you to actually order food. And so here's the trick. If you decide you want a mystery shop, I took $20. I put in a whole nother account, like a whole nother bank account, just because I want to keep it separate. And this was my $20 that I used to mystery shop. So I would go into a store or restaurant and order what they asked me to order. You can't order anything else. You got to follow all the rules. And so once I do that and go through the process, you basically have to fill out a form explaining what happened. You have to submit the receipt. And when you submit it, they will pay you out. They'll give you the payment for the shop plus your money back. So that's why I had a $20, because I basically recycled that $20 when I had to do restaurants. But I would do that, and then I would go into different types of stores also and inquire about different things. So for example, like I've inquired about, at that time, flat screens were like becoming a thing. So like I had to inquire about flat screens. I'd inquire about computers and just tell about my experience. And then they would send me the money back. And I think once I submitted the forms, I would have my money back like within the week. And then I also get the money that they paid me. So I enjoy mystery shopping just because, you know, I like to shop, but then also something easy for me to do. I used to do it on my lunch. I never did it on the weekends. I would go on my lunch, go mystery shop, and come back to work, fill out my paperwork and submit it. So
listen, no, I like that because you something consistent in this whole story is that you protect your time. You're like, yeah. I'm not about to be just working on these, like going back to the adjunct professor. You're like, I pick the course so I can monetize my time, like save my time, I should say. I'm not going to keep picking different courses, so I have to keep redoing all this work. And you wanted something you can master, repeat, rinse, repeat, basically, and make money off of it. So, and I like what you said, I went mystery shopping on my lunch break. It's not taking away time from your son. I think when you said you started, you were a single mom. So you were like, I'm going to do this on my lunch break and figure out how to maximize the time that I have without taking away more time from my child. And I think a lot of people think when I want to increase my income, when they get down and do their budget, they're always thinking, let me just go get a second job. But if you think about some side hustles that you can do at home, that can also help you pay off debt a little faster. So I'm glad you share all those side hustles with us.
Yeah, all my side hustles.
Listen, I'm really gonna start looking into the signing agency.
I know, I need to too. I need to get on it now.
11,000 a month. Okay,
yeah.
30-20.
So the 50-30-20 budget. So the 50-30-20 budget, I think, is one of the easiest budgets to start out. Like, I wish I would have known about it when I started budgeting, because I struggled with budgeting originally. So with the 50-30-20 budget, it came from Elizabeth Warren and her daughter Amelia. I wrote down the book name because I knew I was going to forget. Their book is All Your Worth. And they talked about this budget. So if 50% of your budget is going to go towards your needs. So, you know, like your rent or mortgage, your utilities. If you have a house phone, the house phone. If you just have a cell phone. basic clothing. And then like, yeah, well, I don't think most people have a house phone anymore, but if you have one. And then, like your gas, insurance, your car, like just the basic needs you need to get to work, eat, clothe yourself. And I always say with the basic clothing, like basic clothing, y'all, like not the extra stuff, because we know we like the extra.
Nobody wants to hear basic anything. They're like, I deserve to buy the finest and the best because I work so hard. I'm like, nobody wants to hear the basic word. So those are your needs, right?
Yeah, those are your needs. And then the 30% is your wants or like your lifestyle expenses. So that's all. I always say that's the stuff that like you don't need, but you just want to do because you like it. So, like you include hair in there, your nails. You'll include like the extra clothing you like. Eating out because you can have groceries at home. And I don't think I mentioned groceries in the needs, but that's part of your needs also. If you do have a home phone, then your cell phone's in your wants. You're in your wants, but it sounds crazy because of the way the world is set up now, but it is. And then, any other thing you'd like to pay for. So like, I also would say travel is in your wants because you don't have to travel.
I have to travel.
I know. I sound crazy saying it because I love travel. But you don't have to travel.
I
know. So those are one. And then the other part is your actual savings and like financial goals and paying off debts. So you want to have your savings, that's the 20%. You want to have your savings in there, any extra debt payments that you're trying to pay off, any financial goals you want to save for. So maybe you have your travel saving in there. So when I tried the budget, because I don't use it now, but I still think it's great. Don't get me wrong. But when I was using it, I had my extra travel money in that budget. And so you have your extra travel money, any other goals you have. My wedding fund was in that budget, but definitely my savings. Like my savings was big. So just savings in general. So emergency fund or opportunity fund, whatever, where you choose. And then also like you're investing. If you want to invest and you have those type of goals, then that should be included in that 20% also.
That was going to be my next question is investing in here anywhere, but it's really under that same bubble. So I like this 50-30-20 budget idea because when I talk to people about budgeting, and you still have to start with figuring everything out, right? So you still have to get to the table with your statements and figure out where your money is going. But once they do that, right, if it's a shortage or anything, they're like, okay, I got to cut and increase my income. But then it's always like, well, how much should I be spending on this? As I'm paying off my debt, it's like, should I be spending more? Like, how much should I spend on travel? How much should I be spending on my house? So this 50-30-20 is a good rule of thumb to really figure out where to tell your money to go. And 20%, if you think about your take home pay, your 20% of that, I'm like saying take home, but 20% of that really should be going towards saving and investing according to this. And you get extra debt payoffs too. So it's an easy way to think about where you align. It's not set in stone, which you have to do, but it's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that it's not set in stone because I always mention that you can flip. I don't want you to flip the needs because truthfully, that's just not realistic. But you can flip your wants and your savings piece if you need to, because some people feel like they don't line up in that bubble. And so it's like, well, can I flip these two? And if you have big goals, I suggest you flip it, because why would you wait? Like, why would you wait? I mean, I say that, but you might have other, brunch might be more important. I get it, but you can't flip it. You can't make it work for you. And if you do find out that you're short, maybe you need to cut some expenses, but maybe you need to increase your income because a lot of times we just really need to increase our income. because we're living above it anyway. So we need to increase our income so we can get to where we want to be.
I like that, and that's why we started off talking about side hustles and ways to increase income. Because that was the main reason I really like about your story, because you talk about all these different ways that you increase your income. People think budget, paying off debt, no more Starbucks, no more Big B, whatever your choice is, and it needs to be some sacrifice in there. But it also needs to be some ways to increase income. And I think the increase is not talked about enough. People just hear budget and like, oh my God, I don't want to have to like not do anything fun, because you're looking at the reality of how much you bring home. So it's really important to really know your numbers, because especially if you have credit cards, you could be really inflating your income because you're just swiping, making those minimum payments. So at a certain point, you have to get real, get on the scale get on the scale and see where your numbers are financially. So if you have any questions about the 50-30-20, definitely drop them in the comments. Now, Financialdemics.
Yes.
Now, I mentioned that when I introed you, and I'm saying that it is a blog and it's a YouTube channel, and you're also a money coach there. And you primarily work with women so they can understand like the foundation of setting and achieving personal finance goals. So let's talk Financialdemics, and how did you start Financialdemics, and what's that all about?
Okay, so I'm telling, before my like debt realization, I really did think I was doing it.
It's your girl from the Classy Climb blog coming to you today.
I'm like, wait, hold on.
I'm like, what is
What's going on? I'm down, and I'm like, what is coming through my phone? Sorry, that's when you go okay. Let's rewind that.
I know. So
I'm like, who is that? Is that you? Is that me? All right.
No, that's what I'm thinking. Like, wait a minute. I closed myself. I acted right today.
Okay, so let's rewind. Financialdemics.
Okay, so before I had the realization that I needed to pay off my debt and everything, I thought I was doing well. Like, I was making good money. I was managing for the most part. So I thought financially I had it all together. But while doing that process, and even at that time, I was actually working for a financial institution. I was working with clients who were investing. And I realized a lot of the wives didn't know what to do with their money. Like, I was just like, what is going on? And there was even a point where I worked with, I'm trying to think what's the PC way to call it. But basically, I worked with clients who, like, their family member passed away. And, like, I talked to so many women who didn't know what to do. Like, they were trying to figure out, like, how was I going to pay the bills? What should I do? And so when I started getting my money right, I was like, well, let me help other women, because I've encountered so many women who just didn't know what to do. Like, women who knew a check was coming and wrote checks for their bills, and they still hadn't gotten their money yet. And it was like, well, I thought I would have my money by now. And I was like, no, you can't write the check before you get the money.
Lord.
So I was like, I'm going to work with women, especially African-American women, just because I feel like, we do not have a lot of people advocating for us, even though if y'all check out Elevate next week and get y'all a free ticket to the first day.
Yes.
There's a lot of us out here advocating for us. But at that time, I didn't know. And so I really wanted to help women when it comes to their finances, because once I got a grasp on my finances, and not even the paying off debt piece, once I knew, I was very confident that I could achieve my goal. And that's a lot of times what I encounter. Like, people just don't know. Like, they know they make money, but they don't know where it goes. And so I decided that I was going to start Financialdemics. At first, it was a blog. And then I finally was like, I started coaching, and I finally, stopped being shy and started a YouTube channel. And so now I'm working with women and really just trying to help them learn how to use money as a tool, because that's basically what it is. Money only does what you tell it to do, so that they can reach their goals, because everything we do is related to money. There's just no way, like even when things are free, like my story, there's something that involves money that is going to affect whether or not you can do what you want to do or not.
That's what I like your story, how you say you couldn't even do something for free because your finances weren't together. So that was the cost of getting a free education to get your PhD, to get your doctorate. So I just really like, again, your transparency in that. And I love the concept of financialdemics and women really, you witnessing, you're not just reading headlines thinking that this is a problem. You are living it from what you did in your 9 to 5. And you're like, I want to make a change. And specifically for Black women on how to get their finances together. So if you want to check out Financialdemics site to see and read about Allana, more of her coaching and her YouTube channel, they definitely check out Financialdemics YouTube channel. I love it. She just put a video up today about your annual budget, which is something I do. And I told this to somebody like 3 or 4 years ago, and they were like, an annual budget. Yeah, once I paid off all my debt, I really started doing an annual budget. Does that mean I'm like, you only said you were going to spend $300 every month on groceries? No. But it means that I know my goals for the year, and there's a number associated to that. So I kicked off this year with a vision board party at my church. And everybody was putting all these things on the vision board. We didn't know COVID was going to happen, but everybody was putting what they wanted on the vision board. And I'm like, okay, now the next step is put a dollar sign to it. And some people were like, we're not just going to act like we can't achieve this stuff. You can't just throw stuff on a vision board and say, oh, I would love to go to this destination. I want to invest. And you don't put how much you want to invest. So that's going back to my annual budgeting plan, is so I can make sure I'm hitting the goals that I want to hit and putting that dollar sign to each of those goals. So check out that video. I'm gonna check it out after we get off of here, but I know it's gonna be good because I love to do my annual budget. Now I wanna close with you being a money coach. So I get all the time people hit me in my DMs, emailing me to do one-on-one money coaching. And I do, but it's not Financial Garden's main focus, right? Mm-hmm. So I have on a wonderful certified financial educator who does coaching, and she has years of experience in tax and investments. Like, that's how she started Financialdemics. So definitely check out financialdemics.com. But I want to talk to you about what are, let's say, 5 things that the five things that you see over and over again with people who come in for money coaching. What are those common problems that you see? And what do you find yourself teaching people about coaching that they just didn't expect in general about working with the money coach? However you want to combine them.
Okay. So I'll say the first thing is they don't know where their money is going. So I think every single person, I've only worked with one person who was very tight on their budget. Like, they just really didn't have the income. Everybody else had money. They were just eating it. So they didn't know where their money was going. A lot of times they're eating it. So I always say, like, you're eating your goals. Because, and what I mean by that is, like, you're getting groceries, but you're also eating out a lot. So, like, you're eating your money up that way. So that's one thing that I see a lot. Another thing is just that they just don't know where to start. So they know they need to pay off debt, or they want to, but they're just unsure exactly where to start their whole process. And so with that, it's all about managing their money. Another thing is that people don't analyze their budget. So it's like, we like to create the budget. And I think that I should have mentioned with the 50-30-20 budget is that budgets are working documents. Like, they constantly change. So when you write a budget, it may not stay the same. Something might happen next week and you got to alter it. And so people think, like, once it's set in stone, they're stuck to that. And so I I always say, like, you have to analyze your spending, figure out what you're paying for. A lot of times people start, they don't really know everything that they're paying for. And so you got to go back and see what's going on so you can accommodate for it appropriately. I deal with a lot of people who, I mentioned paying off debt, right? Yeah. So they didn't know how much to save or how to save. Basically, like, they start saving, but they're always end up going back to pull that money out of savings. So I deal with that. And then groceries is a really big one. Like, groceries is a struggle for a lot of people. Go ahead.
Is it from the perspective that they don't put enough money towards groceries, or they?
So either they think they spend less on groceries than they do, or either they know they're spending a lot on groceries and they're not sure how to, like, really reel it in. And really, but I'm like, do you have money in your pantry, like food in your pantry? So I'm big on, I always say, shop your pantry before you go to the grocery store, because you'll have stuff in there and you won't have to buy everything over. You just buy the things you need to go with the meal. And so I deal with that a lot. I'll have that. And then what was your other question?
Hold on 1 second, because we got a question. How much of an emergency fund should a person have?
So I just did a video on this too, like a couple weeks ago. So I really feel like, first of all, everybody's different. And so I don't believe in that blanket of advice for everyone. But what I will say is, if you should at least have 6 months. That's how I feel at this point. Sometimes I'll say 3 months, especially if you're like in a high end demand job, but especially if you're like high income, if you're high income and specialized, you need 6 or more months of an emergency fund, because you're not just going to take any job. And typically those are jobs where people, they stay in those jobs. So you have to really look for a job and find the right fit. But at least 6 months minimally. And even right now, let's see, this is what, August? We've been going through this struggle since March at this point. So that's why you need like more, because there's been people who have been out of work that long. I was just watching today. I rarely watch the news, but today I saw the news, and like here in New York, Governor Cuomo extended the eviction hold off or moratorium on evictions. And there was a woman who they interviewed, like, she had gotten laid off immediately. I think got shut down. She got laid off right after. And so she was saying how her landlord was basically harassing her. And so that's why we need a good amount. And it should be your expenses. Let's say your emergency fund is your expenses, not what you think you actually pay, what you really pay every month in expenses. Make sure that you have at least 6 months of that.
I like the point that you made about tying it to their career and what they do, because if you are in a highly skilled or highly paid field and everyone's getting laid off, it could take you longer to really get your foot in the door and go there. But on the flip side, if you take notes on those side hustles we talked about, you can find ways to increase it. But I know in general, if you are engineering, you're making 150. If you were an accountant, making 150 or whatever, you're not gonna just go and take a job that's paying $50,000 a year to have a job. You will eventually, but that's not gonna be your first pick. You're gonna be like, oh, I can't take that pay cut because we're prideful. Right. And so we're going to be like, oh, I can't do that. You know, my family has to eat. Okay. Right. But month 8, you like, okay, I should have took that job that paid $50,000 because unemployment ain't hitting on nothing, right? Right. But you're being realistic in the time span it could take you to find another job. So that's key. Everybody's not going to be the same. If you work in a job that is always in demand, you may not need to have as much, but even those jobs are shaky. I have a close friend of mine who works in healthcare, and she's furloughed. She's been furloughed since April. Really? Yes. So a lot of professions in healthcare, when the pandemic was really hitting, if it wasn't essential, like I had a surgery scheduled for this year, that got pushed back. It wasn't like life or death. I've known people who had other surgeries scheduled. They were like around April, May time frame. They were like, no, we don't want to put you at risk. It's not a life or death surgery that you need to have. So those are being pushed back. So think about all those surgeries that were pushed back. They didn't want certain people in hospitals or offices or whatever. They were expanding the testing out in Michigan in certain locations. So a friend of mine who works in healthcare got furloughed. So I'm not saying this was not a nurse or anything like that, but think about all that makes up the healthcare system, the administrative staff. Yeah. So
you're thinking they're working. Like, I'm thinking they're working, or at least working from home at the very least. And you have a friend who was furloughed. But even in the college, in the whole of academia, they furloughed a lot of employees, laid off people, and you would think they would still be working.
Yeah,
so you got to be prepared.
You do have to be prepared. This has taught us that. And the other question I had asked you as it pertains to coaching, because you hit on like the common themes that people come to you about. I wanted to talk about what people think about coaching. Like, what do you find yourself telling people what coaching is? Because I'm going to share from my experience. When I do coaching, the initial one, I'm telling them like, this is what it's going to look like. This is the cost, maybe doing a consult. I'm not going to solve your problems in a consult either. But they think that I'm going to make all their dreams come true and they're not going to do anything. That's what they have to do. So what is your experience on coaching and getting people together?
So they do come in thinking I'm going to do everything. But the thing is, if I do everything, what are you going to do when we stop working together? Will you be able to handle it on your own? So I have to explain that coaching is really a lot to do with accountability. Like, I'm going to guide you through the process. Think about like a coach if you went and you were playing basketball. Like, that's the person who taught you how to do things so you can go and do it on your own. All the top basketball players, they play well without their coach. They don't need their coach telling them every single thing to do. And so that's what we do. We typically train. We'll train you how to do what you need to do, show you how to get to your goals so you can get to the next level. But we're not going to do everything for you. It's not going to work that way unless you want to pay us forever. I'm not going to turn you down, but I mean, for me, I feel more rewarded if I can help you move to that next level.
Someone said, thank you, Tanya. Yes. I'm glad that you're doing that too. And you're so knowledgeable in this space. There's a lot of people who are claiming that they're financial experts and they just know from reading headlines. So I'm glad I just have to call people out because it's so annoying. It's like, I was going to get on my tangent for a minute. It's like, I'm an expert. I know everything. And not saying you have to have any certifications, because you can be certified and not know anything too. But it's just like, okay, besides from reading the headlines on the newspapers, what have you researched? What have you done personally? All of that stuff builds up your credibility in being able to coach people. You being transparent about your money story and not just saying you did something, but understand the methodologies behind doing it is what makes a good money coach. So I support you all wholeheartedly in this story. You can just tell from how you're talking about how dealing with people in your 9-to-5 and realizing the gap. So when you want to work with a money coach, just be sure to be first, number one, be willing and expecting to pay. Because money coaches who know who are valuable, there's a cost to it. Like Master P was on his Chronicles and he was talking about he paid, I think, $25,000 to
just for 15 minutes.
And it's like, I'm not at that level yet. Where I can charge that, but there's value behind people saving you time from Googling everything or YouTube and everything. So if you want someone to sit down and look at your money, give you an assessment, hold you accountable, because a lot of, like you said, people don't know where to start. They know they need to do it, but pulling the statements and writing everything down, they're just literally stuck. So if you want someone to guide you through that, who's going to make sure you hit these goals along with you doing the work, there is a cost to that. And I just want to say, do your due diligence whenever you're picking a money coach. If they are a money coach, see how they're showing up on social media. Do you really feel like you can connect with this person? And do they even have tools for you to begin your journey? So I just want to put all that out, because it's some fakers. They're not Elevate Money, because we're not doing that. If they ain't been a part of Elevate Money, you should give them a side. No, I'm joking. Did you want to close out and tell people where to find you, or any last closing or any last thoughts?
So you can find me everywhere under Financialdemics. Definitely come check me out on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. We're trying to get our subscribers up, please. So come check me out, because I give away a lot of free gems on YouTube. And then my website is financialdemics.com. And I think you will find me most though on Instagram, if anything. Oh, and don't forget about, especially if you're a single mother, the podcast is Single Moms on the Money with my co-host Valencia and I. We talk about money, but we also talk about finding that balance. So Valencia is the mother of a mini. And of course, I'm the mother of a big, and I consider myself having a PhD in single mom, even though I'm no longer a single mom. So yeah, come check us out there, because we talk about money in addition to motherhood.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining Financial Garden Live. I had so much fun with you talking about money. You have to come back, and if you don't know, you need to get that Amina's bracelets. It's on the screen. 10K, help us reach our goal and planting financial seeds to 10,000 kids, teaching them about kidpreneurship. I'll see you next Thursday at 7. Bye.